Hello, everyone, and happy Women's History Month. I'm Brenda Victoria Castillo, President and CEO of the National Hispanic Media Coalition. I'm going to kind of give my age away right now, but as a teen, I grew up watching TV sitcoms like The Brady Bunch and Happy Days. These shows were comical. However, I really didn't see myself, a Native Latina, represented on the screen. Representation does matter to our youth. It means everything to our children to see themselves on the big screen so they can believe in themselves. If you see it, you can be it. And that is why I am just so proud of these amazing Latinas like Alicia, Emily, Haskiri, and Isabella out there representing us on the screen. I wish I'd seen young women like this when I was growing up. It would have influenced me greatly and helped me feel a little bit more confident in myself, confident as a young woman. Today, NHMC's Open Dialogue is co-hosted by LatinaMediaCo, Nicola Schultz, and NHMC's Felicia Mora. Both of these bold new leaders are media advocates, and I am looking forward to the conversation about Latinas in entertainment. Felicia, Nicola, take it away.
Hi, everyone. So excited to meet and see you all virtually in this time. I wanted to take a moment to introduce our guests, these wonderful, powerful women who are representing us every day on screen. And I'm going to start with Alycia Pascual-Peña. She is an up-and-coming Afro-Latina actress who is on track to become one of young Hollywood's one to watch. From the Bronx, New York, she fell in love with performing at just 3 years old and has continued to develop a strong passion for the arts. Alicia's Dominican heritage fuels her passion to amplify marginalized voices and bring about social justice. She made the move to Los Angeles after booking her debut role as Alycia in Peacock's Saved by the Bell. Alycia was most recently seen in Amy Poehler's Netflix feature, Moxie, which was released in March 2021. Please welcome Alycia. And our next panelist, Isabella Gomez, award-winning actor, is best known for her starring role as the headstrong yet loving Elena Alvarez in the critically acclaimed series One Day at a Time. Born in Colombia, Gomez got her start in the entertainment industry at just 5 years old. Over the years, Gomez has garnered a handful of awards and nominations for her work, including the Imogen Award and an NHMC Impact Award. Isabella is currently scheduled to shoot the lead role of Alycia in Head of Class for HBO Max. Gomez can next be seen as starring as Kylie in Shatterproof Films' horror mystery Initiation. Please welcome Isabella Gomez.
Oh, hello. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nicola. Before I continue, I wanted to mention that depending on time, we may be sharing questions from audience members. You must be logged into the Zoom webinar, and questions from the Q&A portion down below are the ones we may be addressing. So feel free to engage with us. And now on to our next guest. Emily Tosta was most recently seen as the female lead of the hit freeform reboot, Party of Five. In addition, Emily heavily recurs on the hit FX series, Mayans MC. Recently, Emily wrapped her first feature film as the female lead opposite Oscar winner Nicolas Cage in the genre thriller, Willy's Wonderland. Born in the Dominican Republic and the daughter of a mixed Venezuelan mother and a Dominican father, Emily is fast becoming one of the most sought after young actresses in Hollywood. So welcome, Emily.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here amongst such incredible, powerful women. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And finally, we have Haskiri Velazquez. She is an up-and-coming actress making her mark as one of the most exciting emerging newcomers in the industry. Raised in New York City, Velazquez, who is Dominican and Puerto Rican, found her passion for entertaining at a very young age. Velazquez was recently seen in the hit Peacock reboot of the iconic television series Saved by the Bell. Velazquez can be seen in the Netflix and award-winning feature film, The 40-Year-Old Version, and the mystery thriller, What Lies Below, as well as the CBS hit drama series, Blue Bloods. Thank you to all of our actresses this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really very, very excited. And like Emily said, to be on a panel with all of you amazing women, I cannot wait to get into it.
I'll go ahead and let Nicola take the lead on our questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, so excited to have you all here. We're just going to ask a couple questions just to kind of like get us going and just to talk about, our community and the intersection with media. So our first question is, all month long, we have been highlighting Latino biopics like Chabela, Celia the Queen, iconic Latinas who are rarely seen in mainstream media. I wanted to ask all of you, what's your favorite Latina biopic or documentary? And I think I'll start with Alicia. And just kind of, because I think I got a little overexcited, I just want to give you your shine and give you your time to introduce yourself.
No, for sure. Thank you for having me. I just feel very humbled and honored to be in this space with y'all. I'm inspired myself. But yeah, I think it's really beautiful that we have this month to uplift women, and specifically a woman who I've been obsessed with since I was literally 3 years old, would have to be Celia. Anything Celia, I lose my mind for, azúcar was one of my first words, just because I was obsessed with her beauty, and I think her authenticity when she performed, and her positive presence. So anything Celia Cruz, I'm obsessed with, but all Latina biopics, like grew up watching, obviously Selena and Frida. But yeah, Celia Cruz is like my go-to. Like, you couldn't tell 4-year-old Alicia that La Negra Tiene Tumbao, which is probably not an appropriate song for a 4-year-old, wasn't her anthem. So yeah, her.
I love that.
Do we all just jump in? Do you want all of us to answer?
I mean, honestly, this is a conversation, so yes,
Right.
please jump.
Yeah, I mean, Alicia also mentioned it. Selena, like I was compared to her a lot growing up. I rocked red lipstick at a very young age. I don't know who allowed me out the house with red lipstick, acting like I was grown, but I loved her because she had curves like me. She had like a small waist and a heavier lower body. And I was like, this is someone that looks exactly like me, that her Spanish isn't as perfect. She speaks more English than Spanish. So I really related to her and resonated with the way she looked, the way she moved on screen, and also her work ethic. Like, you can't take away that work ethic, and you can't really instill that into somebody. You're just born with it. So I'm like, I looked up to Selena a lot, and also Jennifer Lopez, who portrayed her in the biopic. Like, you can't go wrong with those two powerhouses at all.
I love that you took that away from her, as her work ethic. I think that's great. Over and beyond, everything that she was able to accomplish in her like art and her skill. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna piggyback because mine was also Selena. I also loved her more because even though she was this star and was so hardworking and all of this, she was so kind and she was so charismatic. And this idea of her being loved on both sides of the border, I feel like sometimes when you're a Latinx actress in Hollywood, you get told like, you're either this market or that market and you can't do both. And watching her and watching J-Lo like portray her, I was like, you can. If you have the work ethic, if you have the talent and you care about both communities, you can be in both markets. And so I adored that about Selena.
I think I'm going to agree with all of you guys between all these incredible women that you guys are speaking about. Obviously, for me, I mean, growing up, like seeing Selena and seeing people like Jennifer Lopez and seeing all of these strong, powerful Latinas that were doing what they loved and they weren't letting all these barriers and all of these obstacles get in their way. And to me, that was such an important thing. I think I'm also going to mention somebody just because this was the first person that I saw on screen that looked like me. And to me, as a young girl wanting to be an actress, that was such a big deal for me. And it was America Ferrera, because I watched Ugly Betty, which I actually watched it as Betty La Fea because I didn't speak English until I was 12. So I watched it as Betty La Fea. And to me, that was such a big deal. And that has always been such a huge inspiration because I was like, oh my God, I felt seen on screen. I felt like if she can do it, that means I can do it. So that was a big deal for me.
That's true. And also she had the movie Real Women Have Curves, and like she was the lead. You get like, you never really heard of a female Latina lead in a movie like that, and it broke so many barriers. And I don't know about you ladies, but I know growing up, like if I ever was a little on the heavier side, there was so many remarks towards us, but that's just because what society makes us think what we should look like. A Latina should be really, really small waist, you know, like curvilicious, like hair straight. Alicia has curly hair. I get curly hair too sometimes. And I think it's very important that when that movie came out, a lot of people saw different aspects of, okay, a Latina isn't one way. We're all so different. We have so many different complexions and we come from so many different places. Like you can't just stereotype us into one thing. So she's really good. I love her.
Absolutely. Well, that carries me into my next question. Many Latinas in film are known for playing iconic women. For example, Salma Hayek is Frida and Jennifer Lopez is Selena. So if you could choose a Latina throughout history to play in a biopic, who would you choose and why?
Ooh, I have an
From
answer.
the block. Like I grew up in the Bronx and I'm also from Washington Heights. I was born and raised there. I mean, my father still lives in that same 2-bedroom apartment. Like, and definitely Jennifer. Like you can't, she's just this, I don't know when she sleeps or eats. Like she does it all. Like how do you have a show in Vegas and then film 5 movies and then have time to go to award shows? It's like, that's somebody I aspire to be like, work ethic wise, being able to have a platform where she can spread positivity. She does so much, and that's something I want to definitely do in my future. I would say her. Yeah.
Since I was a little girl, I have always had this dream of playing Selena on screen. I have been dying to play Selena since I was little. I used to dress up in her costumes and I used to like grab a mic and like it was nobody's business. I was making everybody watch me act and perform and sing, and it was all inspired by her. And I love her music and I love who she was as a woman, her kindness, like Isabella said, and her work ethic and all these beautiful qualities that you guys mentioned about her. I have always wanted to portray that. So yeah, that would be my answer.
Does it have to be a Latina in the entertainment industry or just like?
Not at all. Anyone throughout history, if you have this icon that you've looked up to, like what?
My first instinct is AOC. I would kill to play her. Here's the thing, is like normally I would be like Justina Machado because, you know, icon. Or Rita Moreno because, you know, icon.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you know, my singing maybe isn't like where it would need to be to really do justice to them. But AOC, and also my dad is a lawyer, and I grew up thinking I was going to go to law school, and I'm a little bit involved in politics as an advocate per se. And so I think AOC would be so badass for so many reasons. I think she's the coolest. I was on a Zoom with her one time, and I like you guys know me. I'm never speechless. I never shut up. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to sit here and stare at you for the next hour.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I have been trying to get that woman to be at our ceremonies for so long because I just, her and Bernie Sanders are like money. Like you know, sent us a video of an acceptance speech, and you know, I can't wait for AOC to join us.
Yes. It's gonna happen. And also, Isabella, I'm petitioning for you to play AOC. I'm so here for that. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Manifesting everybody's request. Because I see it personally. But for me, I would have to say Gina Torres or Zoe Saldana. One, obviously, because I see myself in them. There are other Afro-Latina artists that have been continuously disregarded, and most people negate their Latinidad because of their complexion, which I can obviously personally relate to. And I think that they're both women that speak out about their intersectionality with transparency and with sincerity, which I just love. And it was beautiful when I was introduced to both of their work, that I could say, oh, those are other Afro-Latinas, because we don't see ourselves. You know, I've met a lot of people that have fully said, oh, I didn't know Afro-Latinos existed. And it's like, hi, we're here. You know, and those comments start to shift and be less said when you have people that look like us on screen and stories center around us as Latinas and as Afro-Latinas. But yeah, Gina Torres and Zoe Saldana, I would love to be able to explore their stories within the industry and how they've had to navigate and be a part of multiple worlds. So yeah, I'm very inspired by both of their work.
That's so beautiful. We have actually honored both of those women too, because they're so amazing. So I completely agree with you. They totally deserve those, and you would be a great choice for both, either or both.
Thank you.
I feel like we all have to just say it right now, just so everyone can eventually get their dream roles, because this is how it happens, right? I know nothing about how it goes on in the back end, but yes, I feel like that really transitions to kind of another thought we were talking about when we were thinking about this conversation, which is just that, you know, Latinas were highly underrepresented in Hollywood. This is no news to you all because you are doing the work. But we really wanted to think, like, thinking about how many of us are highly underrepresented and how many have yet to see themselves reflected on screen, highly underrepresented, whether it's queer Latinx folks or whether it's Afro-Latinas, even more so. So I wanted to ask you all just kind of about your identity and how that connects to your art, and how you've been able to incorporate both. And I know a lot of the times in film and media, it's really just this idea that other folks who are not people of color don't have to even think about. So I wanted to ask you all kind of that intersection for you all, your identity and your art, and just have you all speak on that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was maybe a little heavy, but I'm like, we have great artists here. We want to hear you.
Yeah,
We want to
definitely.
hear your art. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the truth. The heaviness behind it is the actual truth, is the fact that for you to even have to ask a question like that, and for us to even have to sit here and think about it and answer it, it's in 2021, it's still so crazy. Like, I grew up in Washington Heights, right? I saw people of all different colors from different backgrounds. And for a very long time, I thought, oh, everywhere I go, this is what I'm going to see. And it wasn't really until maybe I went to high school where I had to take the one train all like 40 minutes downtown, where I was like, okay, that's not true. There's definitely sections where people have better living experiences, more money to fund their community, like their parks, like my parks. I remember like 2 swings working at one point, you know? So I think like growing up in Washington Heights gave me that drive and that determination to say, like, I want people who are from my community to see themselves represented on TV, because the only person I really saw on TV was Jennifer Lopez, obviously, but she wasn't on like a primetime TV show. I only got like, you know, like there was Friends, like I was watching Friends, and I'm like, I don't know, 10 watching this. I'm like, who looks like me? Who can I relate to? Where do I find inspiration to say like, oh, I can do this too? And I think that was just instilled in me from a very young age, because I felt like I didn't see that. It kind of gave me that drive and that motivation to say, I'm ready to break barriers. I'm ready to get nose in my face and tell them I'm going to show you why I'm going to make it. But yeah, I think like that really like full circle moment is kind of like being able to be on a TV show like Saved by the Bell that was so iconic, that was led by a white male, and for it to be like spearheaded by a Latina who also speaks Spanish is like, we're going in the right direction. And thank you, Tracy, and thank you, Franco, and everybody at Peacock, because I always told myself, if I want to be a part of an organization or some kind of TV show, program, whatever, I wanted to be with people that I don't have to explain my worth to. And for them to already say, this show needs to be led by a Latina, that's exactly who I'm going to go with. Even if I had another role that was going to pay me 1,000 times more, no, I'm going to shut it down, because I want to be with people who believe in me from the get-go. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. You know, going off of my beautiful sister Haskiri, like who I have the blessing of sharing a show with, besos. But essentially for me, something that has always rang true in my life is the fact that every piece of work that I'm a part of, I want to be shedding light on something and forcing people to reckon with something about my human condition or social injustice. And, you know, Nina Simone and Angela Davis and Frida and, you know, most of my favorite activists and artists shed light upon the idea that as artists, it's our responsibility to shape perspectives. And that's something that I take really seriously. I think that I've been blessed to do what I do, and it's my craft and I love to do it. But frankly, none of it matters if I'm not being able to feed back into the communities that I'm a part of. You know, and as a Latina, as a Black woman, as a first generation American from an immigrant household, it's really important to me that we're having those conversations centered around disenfranchised and marginalized groups because we've been kept out for so long. And when that happens, I think it allows for injustices and oppressive tendencies to be perpetuated through our society. So personally for me, and I think that I share that with the beautiful women on this panel, is the fact that we're given spaces where we get to have these conversations and create change. And that's what matters, essentially. So I think my art and my activism is one and the same. And I never want them to be compartmentalized because I think, you know, I've been blessed with this opportunity, and I think for so long we've been kept out. So it's imperative that I'm intentional with the choices that I make as an artist, because there's a responsibility in shaping perspectives and having those conversations. And there's so much importance in wanting to promote empathy and allow people to be seen and worthy to go after the things that they want. Specifically, you know, being a women and people of color, we live under these infrastructures that don't support us. So I think it's amazing when art is doing the opposite and allowing people to feel celebrated and seen and supported through their struggles and oppression. There's so much power in tribe and community. And that's why these conversations and the art that we make is so important. So obviously I can go on for eons, but yeah.
See, I think my journey has been the complete opposite. I started really young. I started in Colombia. I was born in Colombia, and I was an only child. I was the first grandchild, and I just really enjoyed being center of attention and getting to step into other shoes and do that thing. And this is my skin color. I am super white passing. And so I never really understood the heaviness of any of it or what it meant for a person like me, an immigrant, to be on a TV show. It's not something that registered for me because in Colombia, I watched all these shows that were dubbed into Spanish. So they sounded like me and they looked like me. And so it never dawned on me that there was anything to fight for. And even I've had a lot of privilege in my life, and I've gotten, you know, there's been a lot of hard work, but there's also been an incredible amount of luck that the first show that I booked was with the great Norman Lear, whose whole life goal has been to get people to be seen and get people to be, you know, represented on TV. And so I walked into a set at 18 years old being told you are enough and worthy, and there wasn't ever a disconnect. I was never like, oh, I'm a Latina actress. I was like, I'm an actress and I was the best actor for this role. And so it wasn't until we started discussing all these really heavy topics that we talked about on One Day at a Time. And there was one episode where my little brother, who's darker than me, gets, you know, called names and stuff. And I'm like, that's so lucky that I've never been called anything. And during that episode, we all had the conversation of, which I had never realized, because of my skin color, I walk in this earth and in this industry very differently than my Afro-Latina sisters or my or Latinx women that are darker than me. And so it wasn't until then that I started realizing how much weight my art could have and how much influence it could have. And how when I looked around, there were other people that looked like me on shows, but they didn't come from Colombia. They weren't immigrants. They didn't speak Spanish. They didn't eat frijoles and arroz. They didn't listen to Celia. They didn't whatever. And so I think it's been a journey for me to realize how much this means and how much I want to be an ally and how much I want my art to mean something. And I think because of One Day at a Time, I've shifted so much from just being like, oh, I just want to act and get me on a set and I'll be cheerleader number 2. I don't care, to I want to be really responsible with what I choose. And I want to make sure that if people are going to see me as a Latina actor and I'm only a Latina actor and not just an actress, then I'm going to make sure that these Latinx roles are badass and empowered and just like the women that I see in my life, and make sure that it's not like the same old that we see of us. So it's definitely been a journey, and I feel very lucky that I had people around me who were very gentle and very willing to educate me and very willing to bring me out of my ignorance a bit and help me come to the other side so that I could understand what my work means in this space, because I didn't realize, and I'm very lucky that I do now.
Beautiful. You like actually made me tear up, by the way. I was like trying to hold my tears back. But I also know you on a personal level, so like I know your story, so it hit me a little harder. But anyways, to me, when you asked the question, you said the word, you used the word identity. And to me, that was something that I was actually very insecure of when I moved to this country. And to me, that was like such a shift of my mindset, because I was born and raised in Dominican Republic, where there's a ton of people that look like all of us. You know, it's a very diverse culture. It's a very diverse country. And to me, moving to the United States, I came here with my mom when I was 12 years old, and we came here with no legal status to work. Spanish was our first language. I mean, we basically just got like thrown into a completely different culture. And when I started going on auditions, I started looking around the room and I was like, oh, damn. Oh, what? There's not a lot of people that look like me. And then I would always get comments from casting directors, like, which also you should never be saying this about anybody overall, but especially not a young kid, about my skin color or about my weight or about my bigger breasts or about my accent at the time. And to me, these were all things that brought so much insecurity into my life. And that word identity was completely lost within me, because I came from a culture of so much acceptance and so much sazón, and like to this moment of being so put down for what I thought was my identity. So it took me a lot of years in the industry and continuous auditions and continuous work of self-love and surrounding myself with other powerful Latin women to be able to understand that we are a force and we are badass, no matter what other people in the industry tell us. So to me, once I finally stepped into my power and realized how incredible I am because of my culture and my language and the way that I look and all of these things that actually make me beautiful as opposed to how other people perceived me, that was such an important sort of shift in what I wanted to do with my career. Because now it's like, okay, I want to inspire other young girls to feel that what I feel when I see other women like me on screen. I want other girls to feel seen on screen. I want women that look like me and girls growing up to be like, oh, look, mommy, like she's on screen, she looks like me. I feel represented. So that's why I loved what you said, Alicia, when you said my art and activism go together, because I always say activism through art. I always use that word because that's what I want to do. I want to be able to do my activism through my art, which is why I felt so blessed to be a part of a show like Party of Five, where we were shining light on such an important topic. And even my NMHC, I mean, it is a biker gang and there's a lot of violence and stuff going on, but at the same time, we are telling real stories. Like if you pay attention to the stories and the character developments of all these people, these are things that people in the streets actually go through. And it's a Latinx cast, a Latinx crew, and I just want to be able to continuously be a part of projects, as all of you guys said, that bring that inclusion, that bring that importance, so that we can shine light on topics that matter, because I feel like that's what our industry needs the most of, especially right now in the current political and social climate that we're living in.
Yeah.
Wow, I just wanted to take a moment to say wow, and like how I'm feeling, like just the strength of your collective narratives, and just I want to encourage you all, like as like a media consumer, like what your stories that you're saying, like there's so much strength in that, and there's so much like just validity, and I feel our future is so safe if you all are the ones who are telling the stories. So
No pressure though, guys, no pressure.
Right, no pressure.
throw in your truth.
Yeah, definitely. I agree, Nicola, and like just, and this is not in any way, shape, or form to put you guys down, but you guys are so young, and to have this understanding as you are now is just, it's amazing. And I think it has to do with, you know, everything that's been going on politically, like economic, like everything that's happening in the world has just brought us to build this awareness and be able to talk about it, because we have been aware of these things, right? But to be able to have this space to talk about it and have the verbiage and the resources that we have to do it is just amazing. I think that's beautiful. I'm going to go into the next question. It's actually from one of our attendees, and this is from Anonymous. I'm going to kind of sum it up a little bit. I am biracial. I look, let's see, I'm actually predominantly Mexican, but because I look so white, I was never accepted by my own family, people at school. Sometimes I feel weird calling myself Latina. Would you say that it's okay for someone who is biracial or mixed race to call themselves Latina, even if they aren't completely Latina?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it saddens my heart that you even have to ask that question. And I think that question was posed with so much compassion. Absolutely. You know, and we're fed this falsehood that Latinas and the Latina community, Latinx, Latine, should look one way, sound one way. We are not a monolith. We are beautiful, multidimensional people. So nothing about you, your characteristics, your complexion, your hair texture negates your Latinidad. Be proud of that. And it's unfortunate that we live in a world that tries to suppress people's voice. Can personally relate. I've had a rampant amount of comments telling me, you know, you're too dark to speak Spanish. Ese pelo malo, ese pajón, whatever it may be. You know, or ese español macao, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? No factor about you takes away your Latinidad and takes away your roots. So be proud of that and celebrate that, no matter what you look like, or what people may tell you. So I hope you feel empowered in that. So please feel comfortable saying you're Latina.
Also know that like it goes both ways. Like I've also been told like you're Latina, like
Yeah.
you look tan and like you speak Spanish and you're what? And I'm like, we look like everything. So just like, yes, there are people that are gonna say you're not, or like say whatever. And I get told all the time, like, just ni de aquí ni de allá. When I'm here, I'm Latina. When I'm there, I'm la gringa. So like, whatever. Just realize that you are Latina or Latinx. You are whatever you identify as, and it's in your blood. And whatever you look like, it's still there. And we all want to love and embrace and accept you just as you are.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I completely agree with you. I also felt the same way at some point in time. I was too dark when I was younger. I used to be very nicely tanned. Now I've been in so anyway.
Yeah, none of your characteristics, complexions, or aesthetics, or even parts of yourself, like your ability to speak Spanish or your ability to cook, you feel me? None of that equates your Latinidad.
And also, like, who's in charge to say Latinas are supposed to look one way? Like, I really want to sit down with that person, because I'm like, okay, we're gonna open up a little map. We're gonna go around the world real quick. Like, own who you are. I think that's so important, especially us as Latinas. Like, it's important to own every single characteristic that we bring along, because I'll learn from Alicia, I'll learn from Emily, I'll learn from Isabella. Like, these are just women that I'm gonna learn from, because maybe I didn't grow up learning a specific cultural thing that they went through growing up, or, you know, like, it's so important to kind of create a melting pot within ourselves, even though we are Latina, but we all grew up in so many different ways, raised differently, have different parents, you know. Like, my mother is Alicia's complexion, and like sometimes I'll go out to eat with her and they're like, "Esa tu hija?" No. And I'm like, that's my mom. Like, when I was younger, I used to get so mad, and I'm like, yes, that's my mom. Like, so what if her skin is darker than mine? Like, she is my mother. I came out of her hoo-ha. Like, you know, like, so it's so important to just like embrace who you are and how you look and all your quirkiness and greatness, because it makes you uniquely you. So yeah, call yourself Latina or Latinx, or yeah.
Yes.
I also don't know if this works for everybody, but I tend to, here's the, can you tell I'm in therapy? Coming from a place of grace always helps me understand why people are saying these things to you. And I think like the psychology of the human brain is just like, we want to put things in boxes and neat little boxes so that we can understand it. And I think one of the huge troubles that the Latinx community has is we look like so many things, you can't put us in a box. And we sound like so many things, and we do so many things that you can't put us in a box. So some people are just scared of that, or some people just can't comprehend, or some people have not had somebody sit down and explain to them. And so when they say like, well, you don't look like this, or you're not Latina, it might not even be malintention, or though it might, who knows, but it could just be ignorance, and not like bad ignorance, but just genuinely being like, I don't know where to put you, and my brain wants to put you in a box, and my boxes say that you don't fit into this box, so what are you? So just coming sometimes, I mean, take it or leave it, if it works for you, if it doesn't, but coming from a place of grace sometimes can make you feel a little bit better about what's going on.
And it's so
Absolutely.
about being put in a box, and how sometimes people's mindsets work in that way, because I think that's why it's also even more important, because of that reason, for all of us to embrace our differences, whether it's in our skin color, or whether you do speak Spanish or you don't speak Spanish, or like you said, whether you can cook or not cook, or dance salsa or not dance salsa. Like, we're all equally as Latinas as the person next to us. And I think that's so important, to embrace our roots and embrace our individuality and our culture. And especially, I have heard of a lot of people that say, for example, my castmate, which Isabella knows him as well, his name's Nico, and he played my twin brother on Party of Five. And he would always talk to me and say like, hey, I don't speak Spanish, and I feel like so many people put me down for this, but like, I feel equally as Latino as a Latino who would speak Spanish. And that always stayed in my heart, because I was thinking to myself, like, it is so wrong for somebody to make you feel like you're any less than them, because you guys have differences in the way you go about your roots or your culture. So to the person who asked that question, I'm piggybacking off of what all of the other women in here said. Embrace who you are, embrace your individuality and your culture, and you are equally as included as all of us in this culture.
I think that's really, I think everything that y'all have said really rings true. I think for Latinx folks who are simply existing in our media reality, which is back to the fact that, you know, there's a statistic, we buy the most, like, highest percentage of movie tickets. I mean, I'm talking like pre-corona, but still, we buy the most movie tickets. And yet when you see us on screen, you barely see us at all. And if you see us, we are in those boxes, like as Isabella was saying. And so I think when I'm thinking about the future of our film, the future of our media, I mean, which obviously includes all of you all kind of leading that, you know, what is it that we see in the future? Like, what is it that we're dreaming of? And I kind of want to hear from all of you, like, what is your dream role? Like, what is your dream kind of like narrative that you've kind of thought of, maybe even as a little kid, like, wow, if I could just portray this story, or maybe this, you know, this background, like what does that look like for you all? I'm, you know, because I want this, you know, I think we all want it.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go more so on like what I think the industry, what I wish the industry would look like, as opposed to picking like a specific role. I think to me, what ideally I mean, we have made a lot of progress from the previous years. I just still think that there is so much more progress to be done. I mean, we have shows like One Day at a Time, who got canceled, Party of Five, who got canceled, Devious Mates, Grand Hotel, The Baker and the Beauty. I could go on and on. These were all shows led by Latinx talent, and all of them got canceled. And that's not okay, because we need this representation and inclusion on TV. So of course, there still is a lot of progress to be made. And to me, the future of our industry has to look more like this freaking panel, if I'm honest with you. That's what it has to look like. It has to look like women like Alycia, like Haskiri, like Isabella, like me, like all of us. And to me, that's so important. And that's why I love conversations like these. And I also think that conversations like these should we should have conversations like these, not only with people on screen, but also with people off screen. Because at the end of the day, the writers, the showrunners, the producers, these are the people that are guiding these narratives. And these are the people that should also understand what the future of our industry should look like. Which is why I also love like giving just little shout outs to like Latinx badass women. Isabella actually knows Gloria Calderon, obviously. I mean, you worked with her personally. And people like Patricia Cardoso, which was the director of Real Women Have Curves. And it's just like all these directors, badass female directors, badass female showrunners and writers. And it's also important that we shine light on them as well, because maybe we don't see their faces on screen, but at the end of the day, we are telling their stories, because because they are the ones writing these stories. They are the ones producing these projects. So I think overall in the industry, we all, both on and off screen, need to have a conversation of bringing more inclusion and diversity onto the screen. So I think, to me, that's what the industry should look like.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think, frankly, a lot has changed and there has been progression, but at the same time, just being completely transparent, because I think there's power in transparency. I wish that we were engaging in less disingenuous diversity and, performative tokenism. And I think that that's still happening, and it's a disservice to all marginalized communities, including Latino communities and Latina individuals, because a lot of the times, if we're being honest, we are still seeing roles for us that don't really respect the complexity of who we are as Latina women, and are perpetuating stereotypes and not fully respecting the nuance and the beauty of our communities. And like you said, look at all of these shows that were canceled. And it's beautiful that we now have these narratives about wanting to uplift our communities, but none of that matters if we're not centering the stories around us and not giving us the jurisdiction to be in charge of them. No stories without us, no stories about us without us. And I think that's still continuously happening, which is a wild disservice to our communities. And then also allow for stories to be told about marginalized communities, including the Latina community, without authenticity and specificity. And that does us damage. And then that allows us to have depictions of Latinos in a way that disrespects us. And perpetuates negative narratives. So like Emily was saying, I think it's beautiful that we're now starting to see more Latino stories, but none of it matters if it's disingenuous and you're not having EPs and producers and writers and hairstylists and makeup artists and costumers who aren't Latino, because they're not understanding the cultural significance or gravity of a red lip and a hoop, or the fact that, cultural appropriation is happening. That doesn't get changed, and that isn't dealt with, and people aren't held accountable if you're not having us behind the screen as well, telling these stories. And also, like Emily said as well, we need to have more stories, just more of us, and different facets of who we are, our pain, our struggles, but our beauty and our humor and all of it, and us looking differently with all complexions, every shade, every hair texture. So I still think that there is an immense amount of work to be done, but I feel like those strides are being made, which allows me to be hopeful. But come on, this last year we had award shows that had none of us, none. Like, I was like, pero mi gente, like, y'all
Don't get us started.
Like, you're telling me no one, Nadia? Like, look at these women on this panel. You're kidding me, right? Like, not to get a little, I'm from the
girl,
but you know what I mean? But I think those things don't change if we're not talking about them candidly. So there's still so much work to be done. And I'm tired of excuses and falsehoods that are fed to us. Like, we just don't know where to find them. Or their stories aren't, marketable. And people don't want this. We're yearning for this. I believe in this. And I think a lot of activists say this. There's no such thing as voiceless. There's people that have been silenced. And I think that our community for a long time has been sequestered and suppressed. And made a commodity, and I'm tired of it. But I'm grateful to see that. I think that we're going to a beautiful place. So I remain hopeful. So
yes to everything that's been said. I think like after all of that, I think where I would, because again, I don't have like a role or a thing that I want to personify so much as there was a time in my life where when I got an audition, I just wanted to see like who this person was. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, well, is it a Latina character? If it's not, they're not going to see me. Is it this? Is it that? And I feel like if we could get to a point where the best person for the job gets the job, and if that means the character was written white and then we have to shift and hire some people that are Latinx behind the scene and hire Latinx actors because she's the best one for the role, then I feel like that's where I would want it to be. Because that's the thing, I've always thought it was so bizarre when people are like, oh, so you're a Latinx actress. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, we don't tell people like, oh, you're a white actor. Cool. Like that's not real. We don't say like, this is a white show, but we do somehow say this is a Black show. This is a Latinx show.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we could get to a point in this industry where like, these are just shows that represent the world as they are, that would be ideal and incredible. But God, there was something you said that I wanted to, something Alicia said that I was like, I want to piggyback off that, but how you were saying like there was none of us in these, you know, award shows. It's so bizarre to me because people say like, oh, there isn't the talent, there isn't the whatever. I worked with Rita Moreno for 4 years, who was one of 16 people ever to be an EGOT. So you can't tell me that you can't find somebody to give an award to, because if you watch One Day at a Time, and completely unbiased besides of my own work or whatever, Rita and Justina are geniuses.
Absolutely.
They're geniuses. In fact, Rita has won every award ever. And somehow they still weren't nominated for this show. And so I think, you know, what Alicia was saying is true. Like there's a lot of like, this thing that Hollywood is being like, oh, we want to be inclusive and we want to do this thing, but then they're not walking the walk. And it's one thing to say it, cool, I'm glad you hear us, show us, because there is so much talent out there that I know you can nominate a few people. And I mean, I don't know, I think it's kind of bizarre sometimes that when they don't nominate, they try to fix it by being like, well, we'll put in presenters. We'll put in one Latinx presenter, and now we are so diverse. And it's like, that's not what we're asking you to do, because what you're actually showing us is that you don't care, that you don't see us as a part of. You're seeing as like, oh, we have to check this box, put somebody in so nobody can be mad at us. Yeah. And what we're saying is, you are going to feel so lucky once you realize the untapped potential and talent that you haven't taken the time to look at, that we are going to be able to tell all of these stories that you want to tell so beautifully, with so much nuance, with so much talent, and you're not giving us the opportunity to. And honestly, it's their loss. So if we could push forward past that,
yeah,
that would be.
I mean, just to piggyback off, because everything you were saying was giving me so many like, yes. It kind of takes me back almost to like the Black box, how everybody was putting it up, like these big companies were like, we're here for Black Lives Matter, we're doing this. And they, in a sense, they almost felt like the little Black box was their way of showing their support. But in reality, no, you have to do a lot more. And I think women like us being on a panel like this, we have to keep making noise and nonstop noise. So they're like, okay, they're not going to back down, because it's almost like, let's give them, like you said, let's just have a presenter. They'll be fine. They have to accept what we give them. It's almost like, no, just because I'm thankful for the opportunity that you're giving me doesn't mean that I'm going to be satisfied just at this point. Like, I'm worthy of so much more. I have talent. I'm actually putting in the work. So also pay me as an equal, you know, see me in that same light that you see these male white figures. Like, it just because I'm X, the box that you want to put me in, doesn't mean that I'm less of. So everything you were saying, I was just like, I'm glad that it's being recorded, because I feel like we need to like
I'm gonna go
shoot
back
this
and watch
email.
Like, yes, oh
yes, right.
yes.
You're like, I'm so glad I was a part of this freaking panel, because it's true. It's like, and it's so funny that like, I feel like before this panel, I kind of knew like there's so many Latinas out there that have these same thoughts, but it feels good to be sitting down with all of you and actually hearing it. Like, it's a difference when you kind of see it and read it versus actually hearing it come out the mouths of the women and people that are experiencing it, you know? So it's like, oh my gosh, I feel at home, and I feel just way more inspired than I did coming into it in the beginning. So thank you for everything, all of you, because it's so true. Like, we're here for a long time, not a good time. That's what I want to say.
Yes, the great quote. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I do want to just share with you all that NHMC has recognized this problem, and we have programs that we put into place to put people in front of and behind the camera. We have a writers program. It's almost 20 years old, where people develop a pilot. They write, they work with a professional in the industry to learn how to pitch and get those stories through the door. And our writers are doing amazing things right now. They're on so many different shows. And then we have a Latinx Stream Showcase that we're wrapping up for, well, 2020, because, you know, it was a weird year. and where we put actors, writers, and directors into that. And we're actually moving into other below the line talent now, because we want you guys to have this space. We want to be able to have other people of color in these spaces. We need to have that familiarity. We need to have that safety of like being able to talk to somebody who grew up the way that you did, a writer, another actor, somebody below the line. It's where I'm proud of the work that we do, and I'm so glad to have you guys on here. I have one more question. We're gonna wind down because we're about to hit that mark. And I'm gonna take it from the audience. Another anonymous. I know a lot of you submitted questions. They're very lengthy. I just chose this one because I was like, I think this is a good way to end. Anonymous attendee, was there ever a moment of time where you realized this is what I do, what I do?
This is
why. I'm sorry.
Why I do
oh
This is why.
Not what I do.
You know, I kind of understood what you said, but I was like, I don't want to jump the gun and then feel kind of dumb. The rest of it.
I thought it was like Socrates, so we're on the same page. I was like, oh.
I was very lucky to play a character that, again, when I got it, did not realize the weight of, but Elena was a queer Latinx human. And so that has been so not represented in media, especially in the way that our incredible writers went about it. And because of that, I got to go to conventions and like the Klexicons and all of that of the world. And I remember the first time that we had a panel, and it was Mike Royce, Gloria Calderon-Kellett, and me. And we walked out to a room of people screaming and crying and so excited for us to be there. And Gloria and I, of course, because we are who we are, started crying immediately. Just sat on those chairs with mics, just being like, okay, this is great. But I think that was the first time. I think sometimes, like with social media and whatever, it's hard to understand that these numbers are people, and that these people are watching, and these people are affected enough to follow you, to comment, to whatever. And when you get them all put in a room like that, and you get to do meet and greets after and talk to all these humans that are like, I feel seen for the first time because of this character that you play. That to me usually is just, I got to go to work and hang out with my cast who I adore and do this character that I love, and I got to have so much fun. And for that to mean so much to somebody, and for them to let me be this tiny part of their lives and be with them and hear their vulnerability and their stories and all of this stuff was so beyond anything I had ever imagined or dreamed of for myself. And I think that's also what we were saying earlier, when the shift started happening, where I was like, oh, what I'm doing means something. And so let me make sure that it is worthwhile. But I think that was the first time that I was like, okay, this is why we're doing what we're doing now.
I agree with what Isabella is saying, actually, because I feel like as actors, we immerse ourselves into the character that we're playing, and we're spending 12 to 15 hours on set and months at a time filming a show and filming a film and all of these things, and doing the work and putting in the work. And then once you see the show air or the film get premiered, and then you start seeing people's reactions to these stories that you're telling, and people's reactions to the characters that you're portraying. And that is why we do what we do, because like Isabella said, there's all these people that feel seen on screen because we're playing characters that look like them. There's all of these kids and young adults that feel represented because we're playing queer characters on TV. We're playing things that they can relate to, things that maybe at home or in school they don't feel accepted as, but then they come back home and they watch us on screen and they feel accepted. And that's why we do what we do, because we want to make people feel that way. We want to touch people's hearts. And as actors, I feel like that should be our main goal, to be able to shine light on important stories onto television and film, and to shine light on stories that don't really get talked about a lot. And also doing things like these is the reason why I do what I do. I mean, sitting down with all of you incredible, fabulous women, talking about these things and going to panels like these and doing events like these and surrounding yourself with people like this in the industry, that we are able to do that. And that's another reason why I do what I do, because at the end of the day, obviously, don't get me wrong, I love acting, and working on a show is super cool. And, you know, the going on set and waking up at 5 a.m. and spending all day there with your castmates, like Isabella said, and having fun and laughing on set is also amazing. But what is really amazing is the impact that we can bring onto the world, which we all have the power to do that because of the industry that we're in. And that's why I think it's so important to continue to do things like these, because at the end of the day, this is what's really going to change the world. The mark that we leave in the world through our art, it's what's really going to make an impact for everybody.
Yeah, I couldn't be in more agreement with you guys. I just feel like so honored, because I think one of the most special things that you could do as a human being within our work, outside of our work, is to allow someone to feel empowered and celebrated. Like, we can live in a world, especially now, where things are so complicated and you're engulfed with negativity from social media or other factors. So the fact that I've had the opportunity with my quote unquote job, which, like, I'm so blessed to do with something that doesn't ever feel like a job, for people who I've never met before in different parts of the world, say, you are the first time I've ever seen a Black person speak Spanish and be Afro-Latina. That I'm like, estoy bien, gracias a Dios. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that changes everything for me. And just to, like, Saved by the Bell, man, like, Haskiri and I talked about it, and we were like, does NBC just know what they did? Like, they made two Latinas who look different the lead, and we're both distinctly our own human beings, but have the community of having the same that is what makes me emotional. Because I always want people to just be proud of who they are and to embrace their differences, and the fact that my work is in some way trying to encourage people to feel beautiful and however they look or however they identify is crazy. So yeah, those are the definitely, like, this is why I do what I do. I'm blessed to just adore my craft and be a nerd about film and writing and things like that and art. But man, for people to be like, in Moxie, people being very vulnerable and talking about sexual abuse or being a queer Black woman, and oh my gosh, you spoke Spanish and you said si se puede, you said the word machismo, and all of that was improv for me, you know what I mean? In my own, so it's just, yeah, it's a lot of feelings, but I just feel very honored and humble, and is why I do what I do. Like my beautiful Latina sister said, like, that's how you know you're on the right path. Like, that's what it's all about, right? For our communities to see ourselves, for people to feel empowered. So when people reach out and say those things, it means the world.
I think for, not only speaking about acting, like, we all love it, and that's why we do it, because it's our passion, it's our dream. But I think in any field, people do things with a purpose behind it, right? Like, your purpose, if you have the right intention, that is, like, everyone's purpose when they do whatever career they choose to do is to hopefully inspire someone in some way to feel seen, to feel represented, to feel included in what they do, regardless of where they come from, how they grew up, how they look, just anything, just to have inclusion, representation, but also be seen in a positive light. Like, I think, just kind of wrap it up, it's almost like we are in charge of our narratives. Like, we had to take control of that, because a lot of the auditions going into it when I was much younger was very typecast. It was the girl from the Bronx who didn't have a future, the mistress, just everything was so negative portrayed on me. And I'm like, to an extent, that's true, but that's not only as Latinas. Like, I know my boy who's white, who kind of does the same thing, who's struggling through the same stuff. And I'm like, we have to be able to create stories that inspire people, that make them feel almost able to have conversations that per se they wouldn't feel confident enough to do it themselves. So being a queer Latina, a girl's watching that show and she feels confident enough to have these conversations with her parents. And I think that's where we get our inspiration from, our drive, almost, when we see ourselves represented on TV and we say, like, they did it, it's possible, they're okay. I think I'm gonna take, once the TV is turned off, I'm gonna take everything I've learned to like express that with whoever it is, and you know, continue to create these kinds of positivity and love and light. And I don't know, it's just being able to inspire those, because I think when, you know, like everyone is saying, when the show airs, like, you know, you're so focused on work, you're so focused on making sure you know your lines, you're so focused on being in that moment, and when all that's done, you kind of sit back and you get all this response from all these people from all over the world saying how amazing the show is and how that character inspired them in some way, and now you do feel part of their lives in just a tiny bit, and hope, like, I hope you carry with whatever you learn, whatever that is, with you in order to create bigger and more change in the world and see more diversity and more inclusion. You know, so we all do, I think, what we do because we want that kind of, we have that responsibility almost subconsciously to create change and to create inspiration for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I can say as someone who has never acted a day in her life, but has consumed a lot of film and media, that this conversation, the nuance, the intersection, my dream is that Hollywood follows suit and takes this call to action, because these are the stories, and obviously you all are the actors that we want to portray these stories, to portray these truths with authenticity and with nuance and with, you know, a true desire to represent the complexities of our communities. And I just want to thank you all for your answers and for giving us this time. I could personally be here in this room forever, just because what you all have said has just like given me so much joy. And I just want to kind of make like a little, like what we do at Latina Media is really trying to uplift your all's work. Like, I think there's a little bit of where you all were saying, oh, you know, we're actors, we play people on shows. No, you're developing the culture for, you know, the next generation, for people to be able to see themselves. And I think for us, what we're trying to do at Latina Media is to also give space for Latinx critics to be able to evaluate and write about our work, because I think there are changes being made. And so often it's because our folks, our communities are not, you know, telling our stories and are not critiquing the amazing work of like the One Day at a Time, the Party of Five, like, you know, like we need more critics. So that's kind of what we're doing at LatinaMediaCo. But I just wanted to thank you all again for joining us. I think Women's History Month broadly just continues to remind us all of like the importance of our voices, of your all's voices, of the stories that you all are telling. And I just feel so grateful to be able to have this space with you all in this conversation.
I also do want to say thank you to you guys. I mean, thank you to LatinaMediaCo, thank you to the National Hispanic Media Coalition, like organizations like you guys, and that's what's important. I mean, you guys brought us all together here to have this conversation. So not only like, you know, TV and film, but also organizations like you. I mean, thank you guys for allowing us to have a space where we can have these insightful conversations. Mm-hmm. That means the world to all of us. So also shout out to all of you for putting this together as well.
Yes, ma'am.
For sure.
Well, thank you. Like, just like Nicholas said, like, thank you for the nuance. Thank you for conversing with us and giving us depth, and we can go on for hours. Conversation for sure. We want to thank all of our panelists, Alycia, Pascual-Peña, Isabella Gomez, Emily Tosta, Haskiri Velazquez. We're so proud to have you represent the Latinx community in Hollywood, and we can't wait to see what you all do next. Let's continue to push for equity, intersectionality in Hollywood and beyond. Thank you to our audience for joining and celebrating Women's History Month with us. Let's uplift, acknowledge, and celebrate women every day. Please be sure to follow us on all of our platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, to see what we're doing for the Latinx community and what all of these lovely ladies are doing as well. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.